camps are critical, but they are expensive. So make sure your budget is right. Make sure that you understand what your kid is getting into before you go to these ID camps. But when you're talking about the major Division I, Power 5 ID camps, you gotta focus on multitudes of anything. Everything starts with the 60 to 100. If you're not in putting that into a perspective, then you really don't know what you're getting yourself into with the ID camps. Therefore, you're just going to the ID camps, and that's not productive. We want to be productive with the ID camps. That's the goal, right? The goal is to get your kid exposure and get them looked at by these schools. To do that, you got to make sure that you're following the process. Questionnaires. How I look at everything, even when I was a kid, going through the recruiting process as a football player, I didn't know what I was getting into, but I was fortunate enough to be good enough to be coveted by schools. Schools coming and looking at the teams that I played against, they noticed me on the field making plays. They come to my school to recruit other kids when I was younger. They noticed me in practice going super hard, giving it all I had. They would come to our weight room. They would see that I was a workout warrior in the weight room. Therefore, I was an easy kid to recruit, especially when they checked my grades and have above 3.5. It just made sense to them that I was going to be recruited. So I didn't understand the process, but the process worked for me because I did everything possible to make myself valuable to the schools. But now today, you're talking about thousands and thousands of kids that's going through the recruiting process. You're talking about schools that, you know, they're putting their recruiting budget on the line per kid that they recruit. So if you don't have certain things as far as on the checklist, you automatically wash yourself out of the way, right? And so how I look at it, I see the questionnaires as being very, 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 very valuable. Very valuable. And the reason is because the questionnaires separate you from everybody else, and they give you the schools everything they need to recruit you before they have to recruit you. And what I mean by that, once you fill out the questionnaires, you have everything to them that they need. Home address, phone number, parent information, school information, NCAA ID information, club soccer coach information, school counselor information, email, so they can email you and put you into their ARM software information, your parents' email information, the club coach's email information, so they can do their due diligence on you, as well as qualify you and make sure that you're a person, not a robot. But then you put in say 80% ask for a picture of your kid. They make sure that is valid. That to me should be across all platforms, one or two of the same pictures, unless it's an action picture or just, you know, a school face picture. I think it's critical. Once they can identify who you are, they want to know who your number is. So that moves into the film that you supply. And to me, I think everything that I'm saying, the kids should have this set up for themselves. And then you email the schools in that 60 to 100 after you filled out the questionnaires. Don't email the school until the questionnaires are done. Now, most schools from there, if they have never seen you play, but they like your film, they will ask you to come to an ID camp. Once you get the invite, then you go to the ID camp. At that point, they're familiar. Now, me personally, I do not advise going to the ID camp of schools that you are very interested in. Don't go there first. Go to a local ID camp just so you can understand the preparation that's needed. You got to treat these ID camps like they're games, meaning you got to get enough sleep beforehand. Don't travel the day of. Get there a day before. Get a good dinner in you. Get a good sleep, nice rest, get to the camp early, check in, warm up yourself, then warm up with them, and then come out and treat it like it's a game, like you're really competing. Like I'm talking competing, whether you're training, scrimmaging, at practice, you got to treat it the same way. And then you go to the ID camp focusing on doing your skill set, nothing more, your skill set. And then move that into getting noticed by whatever school that is. It doesn't matter. Then once you move from that ID camp, you're familiar now with the process, then you move to the ID camp that you would want to go to. And then at that point you gain some confidence that, you know, this is a big deal, but you know, I'm ready. And now how you move from there is the level of play, right? Make sure that you are advancing yourself through the process where you can get the kids activated to the point where they're ready to compete. What I mean by that is, if you are playing rec league soccer, don't go to a Power 5 ID camp. Not, at least not first. Get yourself to a local small school ID camp just to get familiar, get your confidence, and then keep adding up, gradually moving up. Now, the ECNL, Girls Academy, E64, the NL, like all these leagues are great, right? But make sure that your kid is ready to compete and keep meaning, what I mean mainly is, don't have them show up to an ID camp thinking that it's going to be just like their practice, where they're the best player on the field. Everything is about them. No, you go there as if you are attempting to gain an offer, meaning you're doing everything, you're paying attention to the coach's direction, instruction, you're moving in the right speed, everything is confident. And then you gain that knowledge of that ID camp structure, formation, and then you move to the next ID camp. And I advise going to ID camps early, as you know, 4th, 5th grade, right? And that's not necessarily but we're just talking about the setup of the process, right? You go in 4th, 5th grade to a local one. 6th, 7th grade, you start moving yourself into more of the schools in your 60-40, right? And then by the time you get to 9th grade, moving into 10th grade the following year, you should have figured out that you want to attempt to be at these 10 to 12 ID camps in the next 2 to 3 years. And from that, I mean, it could be multitudes of different types of ID camps, right? I'm looking at the ID camps for the schools put on, and I'm also looking at like the showcase ID camps, whereas, you know, 4 to 5, maybe 6 schools come and their whole coaching staffs are performing and training these ID camps. The critical point that you want to make sure that you do is get your kid exposure, right? But you don't want to expose your kid, right? So now what I mean by that is, when you start young, you start to sense what they need to do to improve. If you got them training at the rec league and they dominating, you don't know what they need to improve, because they're just so much better than everybody else. But then as they move up, you know what, kid might need to work a little bit more on their left foot. Get them the left foot training before they make it back to the next ID camp that school is putting on. So then the school will see that they're gradually getting better. You know what, kid might need speed training. Get them speed training. So the next year they move to that ID camp, you see that they're moving at a different rate. They're a little bit faster. They're moving a little bit quicker. Da-da-da-da-da. If they need athletic training, get them with an athletic and agility coach. So then they can take that athletic and agility into soccer. So now they're moving at a different rate and a different pace. And then, you know what, maybe need to elevate them again now to the next level. That's where we move in. It's about gradually elevating and expanding. But I think the ID camps with the multiple schools at the early stage is the most important. The D2 schools, where the smaller ID camp sizes, where you get more instruction, they usually always bring in a couple extra coaches to help them. And then once you start moving into that 8th and 9th grade, you want to get to those big schools and get in front of those coaches and perform and get the familiarity with your face, with